All right, if you're responsible for a residential building in England, this is for you. We're about to cut right through all the legal jargon and give you the clear, practical steps you need to take to make sure you're compliant with the new fire door safety regulations. So let's just start with a really direct question. Right now, are you 100% confident that every single fire door you manage meets the latest legal standards? Because, since early 2023, the rules have changed, and that responsibility, it now rests firmly on your shoulders. We've broken it all down into 5 simple parts for you. We're going to look at the new mandate itself, what your 2 core duties are, a super practical visual checklist, which doors you need to check and when, and finally, how this all fits into the bigger fire safety picture. It's a really straightforward roadmap to getting this right. Okay, first up, the new mandate. It's so important to understand why this matters, like right now. These aren't just some minor tweaks to the old rulebook. They are a direct legal response to a national tragedy, and you are required to act on them. So where did all this come from? Well, this timeline shows it perfectly. These regulations didn't just appear out of thin air. They're a direct result of key recommendations from the Grenfell Tower inquiry. They were made law back in May 2022 and came into full force in January 2023. That history gives them some serious legal weight. So who exactly has to comply? Well, the law uses a specific term, the responsible person. This could be the building owner, the freeholder, or anyone who has control of the premises, like a managing agent. So if that sounds like you, then yep, you are legally responsible for putting these new rules into action. Okay, so you know it applies to you, but what do you actually have to do? Well, the good news is that Regulation 10 of the new law really boils it all down to 2 clear, actionable duties. And here they are, the 2 pillars of your responsibility. It's actually pretty simple. Your first duty is to inform your residents, and your second is to perform regular checks. Let's dig into what each of those really means. Your first job is all about communication. You are now legally required to tell all your residents about these 3 things. Fire doors have to be kept shut. They should never, ever tamper with the self-closing gadgets. And, this is key, they need to report any fault or damage to you right away. This actually makes your residents active partners in keeping the building safe. And you've got to be on top of the timing, too. The law is very specific here. You need to give this info to new residents the moment they move in, and then you have to send out a reminder to all residents at least once every 12 months. Consistency is absolutely crucial for compliance. All right, let's get to the practical heart of all this, the checks themselves. Think of this next part as your simple how-to guide for what you actually need to be looking for when you're on the ground walking the building. Now, before you start thinking you need to hire a team of expensive specialists, just listen to this. This is a direct quote from the official government guidance. It says the check should be simple and basic, and that you should not need to engage a specialist. The whole point is that this is designed to be manageable for you or your on-site staff. The entire visual check really boils down to these 4 things. You're going to look for any damage or weird alterations. You're going to inspect the seals and strips. You'll measure the gaps around the door. And probably most importantly, you're going to test that self-closing device. So let's start with check number 1, damage. This is just a straightforward visual check. You're just using your eyes, looking for any obvious problems that could weaken the door. We're talking about things like splits in the wood, holes from where maybe an old lock was taken out, any warping or damage to the glass panels. Oh, and a little detail to check. Make sure the letterboxes aren't wedged open. Next up, the seals. Now, if the door has these intumescent strips or smoke seals, you just need to check that they're in good shape. They shouldn't be damaged, they shouldn't be painted over, and they have to be making contact with the door or the frame. The rule is simple. If the seals are there, they have to be in perfect working order. Check number 3 is all about the gaps. That little gap between the door and the frame, it's actually critical for stopping fire and smoke. The industry standard and what you're checking for is a gap no bigger than 4 millimeters. And you don't need any fancy tools for this. A simple, cheap gap tester card will do the job perfectly. And finally, we've got the most critical check of all, the self-closing device. I mean, a fire door that stays open is, well, it's just a regular door, right? The official test has 2 parts. First, open the door all the way and just let it go. Then do it again, but only open it a tiny bit, say to a 15-degree angle, and let it go. In both tests, it absolutely has to close firmly all the way into the frame, and you have to hear that latch click every single time. Okay, so now you know what to check.
which naturally leads to the next questions. Which doors do I need to check, and how often do I need to do it? This next part lays out your exact inspection schedule.
Now, here's a really crucial point. This mandatory checking schedule applies specifically to multi-occupied residential buildings that are more than 11 meters high. So we're generally talking about any building with more than 4 stories. If your building fits that description, these checks are not optional, they're the law. This table breaks down your schedule perfectly. Notice the big difference here? Any fire doors in communal areas, hallways, stairwells, they need to be checked at least every 3 months. But for the individual front doors to the flats, it's at least every 12 months. And for those, the law says you have to use your best endeavors to get access to check them.
And I can't stress this enough. You absolutely must document everything. Keeping a detailed record of every single check you do is a mandatory part of these regulations. For the flat entrance doors, you need to be extra careful, writing down all the steps you took to try and gain access, and making a specific note of any time a resident wouldn't let you in.
Okay, for our last section, let's just zoom out a little bit. It's really important to understand how these simple, routine checks that we've been talking about fit within your overall fire safety strategy. Now, this is a really vital distinction, so please pay close attention. The Regulation 10 checks we've gone over are routine, visual inspections for obvious stuff like wear and tear. They do not, I repeat, do not replace a full fire risk assessment. An FRA is that comprehensive, deep dive assessment by a specialist. These simple checks just make sure the doors are working as they should in between those bigger expert assessments. So let's just lock in the key takeaways. First, inform your residents every year. Second, check your communal doors every 3 months. Third, check those flat entrance doors every 12 months, and do your best to get in. Remember, these are simple visual checks that you are empowered to do. And finally, and this is so important, keep detailed records of everything. That's your path to compliance. We'll end with this thought. A fire door is a life-saving piece of equipment, but only if it actually works. Your residents are counting on you to make sure that it does. So the final question is a simple one. Is your next check already scheduled in the diary?